I'm here at Kabafest 2018 and I got the student book grants and I'm on the queue lining up to get my books and I'm so excited. I'm meeting new people and I'm making new friends.
We have lovely books here and I'm having fun here and I hope to be here some other time.
I can't wait to get my hands on this and start reading them.
In 2014, the attacks became more rampant and even more vicious. So much so that they were named one of the two groups responsible for 51% of claimed deaths in 2014, having killed over 6,000 persons and injuring 1,742 persons in 453 attacks. These practically placed them ahead of ISIS to become the deadliest terrorist group in the world. By 2015, Boko Haram had killed more people per attack. In 2016, Boko Haram killed more than 3,600 persons. As of 2017, it is estimated that more than 30,000 people had been killed by the sect, with over 200,000 Nigerians now refugees in neighboring countries. Internally, over 2 million persons were displaced and 1.7 million in Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa states. In spite of the humongous humanitarian tragedy, several communities are still not accessible for interventions. For reasons that are associated with its doctrine, educational institutions were gravely targeted by the sect. Primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions were destroyed, and hundreds of teachers and workers were killed or injured. According to the Human Rights Watch report released in April 2016, between 2009 and 2015, attacks in northeast Nigeria destroyed more than 910 schools, 450 education afterwards. The region technically transited into a graveyard for children seeking education. The first recorded attacks on schools by the sect were carried out in Borno State in 2012. In a March 7, 2012 press release in Nairobi, Human Rights Watch reported that on February 20th of that year, 3 schools, Kolaguma Primary School, Abaganaram Primary School, and Budum Primary School were razed in the night. On the 1st of March of same year, another 5 schools were destroyed in coordinated attacks. The sect claimed it was reprisal for the arrest of several clerics from Quranic schools by the army. The attacks took a dramatic turn later in the year on October 1st as the sect to government secondary school in Yobe followed on Saturday, July 6, 2013. A total of 30 persons were reported killed, including 1 English teacher. The Federal College of Agriculture in Gulju had more than 50 killed on September 29, 2013. Most of these attacks went by without notable national outrage until the attack on the federal government college Bunin Yadi, Yobe. Teenage schoolboys, 29 in all, they had their throats slit or burned alongside all the school's 24 classrooms on February 25th, 2014. The outrage was loud. The nation faced a reality that Nigerian children in the Northeast now had to choose between going to school or staying alive.
Insurgency affects education seriously in this locality. Not even in this locality, but even in the local government at large. So many left their homes, and the children have been misplaced from one place to others.
The final nail.
And that was a film by somebody who is here. We just wanted you to see a tiny little piece of it. Have you seen these photographs of a woman who stands with a placard and has done so every single day since the Chibok girls were captured? Have you ever seen that on social media? Yes. Well, Bukky Shonibare produced and directed this movie, and she's here with us today. Please welcome her. We also have on this panel, you know, I actually remember everyone who's on the panel, but I have a psychological, I just have this feeling that I'm going to forget. So we also have somebody who I think is really quite special. And he is the president of the Association of the Parents of the Chibok Girls. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Yakubu Nkeki. And also on the panel, I'm doing it the other way this time, we have somebody who, a young, brilliant man. He's actually completing his PhD at Rice University. Absolutely critical for everyone in this neck of the woods, in the rest of Nigeria, in West Africa, to read. And it's a book called Boko Haram, a Reader. It is the most comprehensive text that actually tracks the writings and the preachings and the sermons of Boko Haram leaders since 1991. It is unbelievable, and we're lucky. Reader Books has actually got the license to publish it in Nigeria. So it will be available. Right now, the book, we have it in the bookstore, but we had to import copies from the UK for them to be available here. So they're still quite costly. But we are trying to make them available. It's a thick book of well over 500 pages. Make it available for no more than 3,500. So just watch this space. If you can't get it now, you can get it later. Please join me in welcoming Abdulbasit Kassim. And where would we be without the moderator? Abdulbasit, you're over here. We have a gentleman, he was on a panel last year talking about Boko Haram and sharing with us some of his personal experiences. And I couldn't think of anyone more qualified to moderate this panel than Dr. Abubakar Othman. Please welcome him. Thank you. Is it because of the topic that you've suddenly decided to be doing? Please, let's give this panel a big round of applause now.
Hello. Have you handed over? Lola, have you handed over to me? Okay, thank you. Hello. Yeah, good evening. It's nice to be here again. I was on this stage, no, on the other stage last year on the same topic. Right. It is, let us not forget the context of situation we're operating in. It is about books. It is how can literature, all right, and the creative arts help in solving these problems? So I will begin this session by first of all referring us to, I don't know how many of you have read that book by Thor Heyerdahl, The Kon-Tiki Expedition. You remember that book? Oh, really? If you wrote your WAEC in 1977, it was in that text. So I still remember the book. I crammed it for WAEC 1977. And the book opened thus. Sometimes you find yourself in a strange situation. You get into it gradually and in an ordinary way. And when you are in it, you are astonished. And you ask yourself how it all began. That's the starting point of that novel. And that's exactly what we are asking ourselves about the Boko Haram crisis today. How did it all begin? Likely enough, we have a researched work on that topic from Abdulbasit. We have someone who has seen it practically, right, from Bukky. And we have someone who is directly involved, although I am more involved than him because perhaps his children were not there. I have lost children, I have lost property, I have lost over 3,000 books. So all of us here are directly involved. So already your biodata has been provided in the book, but for the purpose of variety, maybe you will introduce yourself briefly, all right? I'll start with you on my right, Mr. Abdulbasit.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Abdulbasit Kassim. I'm a PhD student at Rice University. I'm doing my PhD in religion, where my focus is on Islam and African studies.
Thank you. Bukky?
Thank you. My name is Bukky Shonibare. I'm one of the founders of the Bring Back Our Girls Camp, and I'm the founder of Girl Child Africa, and I run a program in the Northeast called Adopt a Camp.
Mr. Yakubu?
Hello, good evening, all of you. My name is Yakubu Nkeki. I am the chairman of Adopted Chibok Girls Parent.
Right. Thank you. These are our panelists, and of course, I am Abubakar Othman, as has been said. I work with the University of Maiduguri. I teach African literature and creative writing, and my area of specialization is psychoanalytical literary criticism. So on several occasions, we have done, a psychoanalytical analysis of the Boko Haram crisis. It is well documented in the University of Maiduguri, and we are now in the process of getting it digitalized so that it will be accessible for everybody. Thank you very much. Right, the Boko Haram crisis, let me just give you a background so that they can key in from that context of situation. I think it started gradually, as Thor Heyerdahl will say. It started like any other movement. Initially, it was, what do you call it? Maitasine in Kano, all right? And from Kano, Maitasine moved down to Yola. And along the line, maybe there was political will then, it was nipped in the bud. Then suddenly, from nowhere, as time went by, a rather pretentious, puritanical religious organization or movement surfaced, right? Reiterating what Maitasine was saying. And to tell you the truth, Maitasine was not even a Nigerian, he's a Cameroonian, right? So reiterating those things, condemning all what we know, all what our parents know, dismissing it as haram, and we thought it was just the normal thing. These are little things that matter. Why should somebody just come overnight, right, and say what you have been doing is wrong? Has the Quranic text changed? The same text that led you or taught you to do those things is still the same text. How come now overnight it became haram? So they started condemning this and that left and right. And gradually as we ignore this, because we also ignore the education of our students, the education of our scholars, some countries found easy prey there. We were taking them to go and study, especially in Saudi Arabia and in Iran. This group of scholars, especially those that studied in Saudi Arabia and started coming back, came back with this ideology. And one among them went the extra mile to perfect the ideology that metamorphoses into what we now call Boko Haram. I will explain to you the origin of the word Boko Haram, right? How they gave themselves this name Boko Haram. But even among them, one of the leading scholars among them who felt that it was actually not in the national interest to do what they were thinking of doing, warned repeatedly, especially in Maiduguri, that a monumental tragedy is facing this nation, which as of now, a handful of water can quench the fire. But if we allow it to materialize, not the two largest oceans of the world can quench that fire. That was Sheikh Mohammed Jafar, all right, who was eventually killed, in the process. So government also ignored that, and now it has brought us to this position. What is Boko Haram? We cannot say with certainty how they got the name Boko Haram. They call themselves with a long, pretentious name that they call it what? Who can remember? It's in Arabic, very long, yes? Well, jihad, right? They gave themselves a long name to give them that fake spirituality, all right, that they claim. But along the line, according to contemporary legends, please do not quote me, all right? According to contemporary legends, and contemporary legends are unfounded, all right, but also attractive. According to contemporary legends, there was a time in Borno State when this group needed funding, and the funds were to come, in large amounts and cannot be done just through individuals. So the Borno State government introduced or created a Ministry for Religious Affairs. Through that ministry, money was being churned, right, to this group. Maybe the agreement then, the state government will take 20% and 80% will go to the group. And gradually, it went on. It became 50-50. From 50-50, 60 for government, 40 for the group. We are going to that kind of political kleptomania we're talking about this morning, right? Until it dawned on the leader of that group that the government was changing them. And they branded government. So Boko here is actually not the Western education per se, all right? To them, not the Western education per se, but the product of Western education. Then we can say perhaps Western civilization, and the government or administrative setup is a manifestation of that Western education. Because of that, they said Boko is haram. This government is haram. So they started attacking government. They started, first of all, by attacking the police. And gradually, it brought us to where we are now. That is a crude summary, right, of the situation that brought about Boko Haram. However, we have on the panel someone who has researched very well on the history of this monstrous organization. And his book, which is very informative, very important, The Boko Haram Reader, from Nigerian Preacher to the Islamic State, right? Which you co-edited with Michael Wangpa, right? So, Mr. Abdulbasit, is Boko Haram, from your own research and findings, is Boko Haram a religious motivation or a political machination?
Thank you so much for the question. Now, usually when I gain the opportunity or the platform like this to speak about Boko Haram, I usually have like ambivalent feeling. I mean, because it's a subject that is so bleak, it's so gloomy, and at the same time, we still need to discuss it, actually. Is Boko Haram a religious or political motivation? This is a very important question. What I can say from my research, what I try to do, I try to go beyond conspiratorial thoughts. I try to go beyond conspiracies, because there's a lot of misperception and misconceptions about Boko Haram. To answer this question, what I did in my research, at the nascent formative stage of academic research on Boko Haram, there was paucity of engagement with the primary sources of Boko Haram itself, with what the group itself is saying. And I actually felt like this is it. Unfortunately, you mentioned Maitisini. I was in Kano and I went to different archives in Kano. And one of the questions I was asking is, Muhammad Marwa, the leader of Maitisini, he was preaching at Fage. Do we have what is said to the people? Before you can convince someone to die with you, you must have proselytized, you must have preached. The people must have accepted your belief. So I went to kind of Afage, and I was going to different archives. I wanted to know what Maitisini was teaching. What books was Maitisini teaching? Do we have access to his sermons, to his audios, to his lectures in general, so that we'll be able to understand him from his own words? Unfortunately, we have none of that available for Maitisini. The only thing I saw were actually journalistic reporting. And I was saying that I'm not interested in journalistic reporting. I want to know the psyche. I want to go into the mind of those people to understand them from their own words. So in the case of Boko Haram, so many people actually attribute so many things to the group. In my own case, I try to go beyond convictional questions to duty is not to make value judgments on good or bad theology. That is the function of theologians and clerics. My duty was actually to understand this group from their own words. So I started gathering all the primary sources, from their books, to their ideological communique, to their internet tracts, to their audios, to their lectures, to their poetry. I said gathering all of this, and the purpose of that was actually to understand the group itself from its own words, and not necessarily projections that people make towards the group. So from my gathering, from my analysis of their primary sources, what I can say is Boko Haram is a combination of both religious and political motivation. Political in the sense that Boko Haram, they never conceal the fact that they are interested in territoriality. They're interested in having territory for themselves where they can actually implement their own brand or austere version of Sharia law. That has always been their idea. Muhammad Yusuf made this very clear before he died in 2009. Shekau also made it very clear. And even when they had internet schisms in the group, Abu Musa Barnari, Abib, who is the son of Muhammad Yusuf, also made this very clear. So they have that political motivation of, because they believe that the Nigerian state is in their own parlance in Arabic, is Darul Kufr, and the leaders of the Nigerian state are Tawagit, they are Tagut, who are not ruling by the Quran. That is what they are saying. This is not my position. This is what they are saying. And also they condemn the use of secular constitution, which they call Qawanin al-Wada'iyya and Dustur, and they want to implement their own brand of Sharia law. That is their own, so they have political motivation. Now when it comes to religious motivation, yes, Boko Haram, so they also have religious motivation. It's become so difficult for us to have this conversation for two major reasons. The first reason is, when people discuss Boko Haram, what is that opportunity to say, well, because Boko Haram is carrying out this action, then it means that is what Islam represents. Unfortunately, I am a Muslim, and I don't I don't condone such abysmal atrocity that they're actually carrying out. But so Boko Haram, they no matter how they twist a theological text, they actually have religious motive behind what they're doing. And that religious motive, I also have to say, that is tied into so many things. It's tied into history of northern Nigeria. And permit me to say this. Usually when we have conversation about Boko Haram, I call this a Voldemort effect. We sometimes skip so many things. Whatever Muhammad Yusuf said, whatever Abubakar Shekau said, they are not the first people in northern Nigeria to say that. So many people before them have said it. So many people. In fact, in my current research at the moment, I'm looking at a text, theological text, that the scholars in northern Nigeria wrote at the time of British invasion of northern Nigeria. And in one of the texts I came across, I saw a text where one of the scholars was actually saying that to use the talcum powder, so many things that people have said before now, anything new. And I think Qadariya Hamid, Mrs. Qadariya Hamid, she mentioned that we have to sit down and have a conversation. I think northern Nigeria need to sit down and have that conversation. Some inherited theological understanding that we inherit actually forward, otherwise to suit their own interest. And I will end with giving God. There was a lot of berserk. People went so wild and angry. Why would they do such a thing? Why will you engage in slavery? Why will you do all of that? I listened to Abubakar Shekau, and what Shekau was actually saying is, why are you all surprised that I'm engaging in slavery? It was the British that brought an end to slavery in northern Nigeria. British suspended it. Before now, our forefathers were engaging in slavery. Not only were they engaging in slavery, they actually had textual tradition that legitimized slavery. So Abubakar Shekau, and this is very important, he went back to 1615 when Ahmed Baba, the scholar from Timbuktu, wrote a particular book called Miraj al-Su'ud. Miraj al-Su'ud is actually a book that entails so many things, but in that book, Ahmed Baba classified the people that can be enslaved. Land cannot be enslaved. The people from this land cannot be enslaved. That book was 1615. 200 years later, after the book, Uthman bin Fodio, who is the famous Islamic reformer in northern Nigeria, also relied on the same text as well to legitimize slavery. 200 years later, after Uthman bin Fodio, Abubakar Shekau also came and said, well, I can use the same text to legitimize slavery. So he was saying, you're all being hypocritical because slavery was actually allowed. So why am I saying all of this? We need to go beyond sensationalism. We need to go beyond emotion for us to be able to have critical conversation about Boko Haram itself, what bettered it, about the ideology, about their modus operandi. We need to have that conversation between the thick conversation. I mean, conclude, looking at their textual tradition, Boko Haram is a combination. They have both political motivation. And I think it's very important for people to understand them, not from what we think about them, not from the way we view the world, but from the way they themselves view the world. That is the first step we've always been missing. Thank you.
Thank you. Bukky, you are on the field. You met the victims. You've seen the conditions in the camps. Is there actually a political will on the part of government and the non-governmental organizations to really understand this phenomenon and address the problems of the victims, of the Boko Haram, the internally displaced persons, which includes me? All right, because I've been displaced from my own home, from my own house. For the past 5 years, I've not been home. Not a room was left standing in my house. Do you think that what is going on in the camps now, all right, is leading us, to the resolution or solution to these problems? You have visited the camps. What is your own experience from the camps?
Thank you very much. First, I have to say that you literally have made even me understand better the history of Boko Haram. I came here with, I had to put my iPad aside when he started talking because I actually put down notes of the history of Boko Haram that I always talk about when I'm invited to panels or to speaking engagements. And we erroneously believe that Boko Haram started in 2009. Somebody actually asked a question that is akin to this yesterday. Boko Haram did not start in 2009. 2009, the event of July 2009, when Abubakar Yusuf was killed and Shekau took over, is just one of the happenings from what preceded. And what preceded was not even 2002. Somebody asked about the British Empire and whether it is linked to colonialism, the issue of Boko Haram. And I think that he has tried to give it in a sense. And I look forward to getting your book and buying it so that I can speak more fluently like you have done. Now, having said that, is there political will? That's the question that you're asking. From my field work, what I've seen going around Northeast, and not just the Northeast, but even other crisis situations, because we also have what is going on even in the Middle Belt. We see what is going on in Benue. We see what is going on even in other parts like Taraba and all of that. What I see is there has been an evolution of political will, let me put it like that. What we saw in the years before, and I'm not going to make this government or no government, that's not why I'm here. What we've seen before was the fact that we never nipped this issue in the bud. We never took it as anything serious. There was a time when we argued that there is no Nigerian that would allow him or herself to be strapped with bomb and go somewhere and bomb him or herself. We just felt, no, Nigerians, we love ourselves too much to ever allow that to happen. But now, when they give some of these young girls the bombs and they strap, even though they have their fear, but they tell them things like, whatever is the wrapper that we give you, when you die, those wrappers and the money that we give you, that is what you will use to start life when you get to yonder, to beyond. Now, and they will tell the men that when you get there will be how many virgins? Is it 14, 10, 72 virgins? And men who wants to have virgins would think that if I can't have virgins here, if killing myself will give me access to 72 virgins. It speaks to something that Boko Haram played hugely on this of these people. It's not even about illiteracy. It is about the fact that these people did not know much more than what was told and sold to them. So you will find an average young boy in Northeast, and you say, why did you join? I like how they dress. As simple as that. He will say, because they gave me money. Because I can go back, how do we tell their stories? I think that was the first time it came out to the world that we really are sitting on a time bomb, right? Save for 8 of the girls that were remaining. The Chibok community came out again to say, we've not seen our daughters. Then people started shouting, where are these girls? And that was when it started coming out. But group of criminals in this country that can pack 276 girls at once. I can bet you there are people in this room who still do not believe that abduction took place. And this is not just about the Southwest, Lagos, blah, blah, blah. It is not about how geographically far away you have from the Northeast. It's about the fact that of that sort. It was only then that we started hearing that, hey, there's been even more abductions before they would come, throw 1,005, 2,000 naira, 3,000 at you, and pick the girl and said, we've paid for it. And then there was this conspiracy that was also going on with some of the elders of some of those communities that would sell the girls off, which had been happening even before the abduction of the Chibok girls. So what the Chibok girls issue did was to open our eyes to not just the fact that abduction was going on, but to the scale of abduction that was going on and the scale of abduction that can still happen. Disappointingly, we saw Dapchi girls were abducted years after, telling us that we didn't learn any lesson from that of the Chibok girls' abduction. Now, what I have seen, the scariest moment I've had in my GO people that fly over the country, put land miles on the way. And guess what is in Bama? And then Bama was not accessible because when you go from Konduga to Bama, from Maiduguri to Konduga and then Konduga to Bama, you are entering into left and right Sambisa forest. Sambisa forest is not even a small forest like this. It transcends states. And people like you can see how many states, and I'm not talking about 5 states. There are parts of Chibok that are part of the bushes that extend from what we call Sambisa forest. Sambisa forest extends to Yobe. That is why when the first Chibok girl abducted, she was found in that Yobe axis. So when we got there and we were coming back, they had laid down landmass. Thank God that I was coming back with military. They had this local detector. So they detected it ahead, and we were forced by what some international community are doing. And what we should know is that there is commercialization of this grief, there's commercial of this war, there are shameless people. You collect millions, translate to what is going on in the Northeast. You won't see schools that have been built. You won't see new schools that have been built. You won't see new schools that have been renovated. Children, I would say that Adamawa, I think there is only 2 or 3 left. Borno still had more. And then they are shutting down all the IDP camps. And the plan is to make sure that before 2019, all the IDP camps have shut down. So on the part of the NGOs, the political times is commercialized. Comment used to be.
Thank you. Mr. Yakubu, you are in Chibok, I'm in Maiduguri, so we are actually in the same zone.
Yes.
When the Chibok adoption happened, the information we got then was that that night that the incident took place, the security men in charge of the gates were not on duty. The principal, the vice principals, two vice principals, right, who ought to have been on campus because their houses were there, were not on campus, right? The matron, who is a relation to the principal, was not virtually left empty. And further investigation revealed that, which you know very well, all right, which you have also confirmed, that the relations of these people, the principal, the vice principals, the matron, right, were not involved in that abduction. Actually, they were not on campus that night. What would you say was the motive, right, or the circumstance in which this incident actually happened? Was it a premeditated action?
Thank you very much for your wonderful questions. But first of all, I want everybody to understand me, to pick something from me small because I'm not so educated enough. I start my primary education at the age of 19 years, of which in somewhere somebody might have graduated in university to know how to read and write. And at the same time, maybe it's a God will that I will come and find myself in such situation whereby I will talk to an educationalist like you here. Any mistake, I think you can at least grab something. Thank you very much. Mr. Ahmed Abubakar, I thank you for your questions about the school authority and also what happened in Chibok. I want to dress our mind back to at least 20 days before the adoption. 20 days before the adoption, there was a certain test of mind going on in that government secondary school, Chibok. Why I say it? Because my doctor is one of the assistant head girl. He was then in SS2. And those who involved in adoption was in their final year, SS3. There's one night he called me when all students were still in the school. He called me through phone and said, "Father, we are running in the bush. We are not in the school." I said, "Why?" He said, "No, we don't know. Somebody set a fire on a certain things, and we had a gunshot." So all students claimed the word and ran to the bush. I said, "Where exactly are you now?" He's telling me a direction of which is far away from the school. I said, "Okay, find a place and sleep. It is already a night, almost 12 midnight. Don't move around. Are you alone?" She said, "No." They were about 8 in number. I said, "Thank you. Sleep there." Early man set a fire, and when military men in Chibok showed that, they start shooting guns that make the children escape from the school. I said, "Okay. Have you calmed the situation?" They said, "Yes, nothing again." I said, "Okay." So I asked my daughter just to cool down in the school. You know why my finding tell me that is a test of mine? After all, the principal addressing the whole students saying that, you see, during the Buniyadi attack, they doesn't touch any female students. So even if you had a gunshot or something like that, don't escape to anywhere because Boko Haram is nothing to do with women. You see, it's a certain test of mine. My daughter told me that almost all the girls that escaped from the school. But by this advice, you know, they were okay. Coming to the very day that the girls were going to adopt, evening of April 14, 2014, around 7 p.m., you know, I had a phone from one of my uncle in Chibok. I am living in Balala. It's just 12 kilometers away from Chibok. And that girl called me. He said that, Father, my uncle, we are not in the town. Oh. He said, where are you? He said, we have escaped to the bush. Someone tell us that we should leave the town and escape because Boko Haram are coming. I said, how do you find out? He said, yes. We had somebody going here and there telling us in the house. He said, okay. Is that true? He said, yes. So where are you now? He said, he claimed a one mountain nearby the, all over around Chibok side, Chibok town side, Balala town. Because you will see everything very clear when you are in Balala. They have already set fire in the school, to the school building. In the morning, everybody are eager to go to Chibok to see things by himself or herself. Before we reach there, none of the girls were in the school. And we are hearing that Boko Haram have adopted all the girls. I see many people crawling on the ground, crying bitterly everywhere. Finding right from that moment, I called some of my colleagues. I said, are we going to keep on crying without any solutions? Let's come together and reason and call a meeting so that we can find a solution to this issue. That was the first day I started calling my colleague to be as a leader. I said, we should not just call these people from the Chibok town and find out how does this thing happen. Exactly, we went to the PTA chairman, that is Parent Teachers Association chairman. We met him, and then we discussed with him. He said that, yes, this is really happened, but there is a solution. Tomorrow, you will come, go and equip yourself, find your local weapon, and come. We will sign to army in Damboa and civilian GTF. So all you as your parents and your relatives and these security men, you will follow this Boko Haram. They are very close. They doesn't go far. On the way going. It is a thick forest. There is not a motorable even. I call my colleagues. They said that we should collect, at least contribute 500 for fueling the vehicle of that security man. So, 5,000 naira, 85,000 naira, we give to the security men, civilian GTF. What surprised me earlier in the morning, we mobilized ourselves and find ourselves in Chibok town in order to put head together with this security man on the ground. They took our money, not any security man. We said, even if we were back like that, up from Damboa and you jump, finish with you all, go and report it to the security man. It was late in the evening. We slept in the bush on the way back home. We came again. We reported to the security men. We reported to the elderly people in the town. Not any solution. It was almost 2 months. Nothing has been done. Until when this militant go very far to deep forest of Sambisa. You know, People couldn't believe that this girl was adopted. What surprised me is, you see, the matron who is sleeping together with the girls is senior sister to the principals. The security man on the gate of the GGSS, who is normally in charge of the gate, is her senior brother. You see? At the same time, this school is inclusive with the staffs. They have their houses, their children, and everything living together in the compound with the girls. Before the evening of 14 April, everybody vacated and left the school. The principal herself, she found her way to my room. I asked so many questions in my finding. I said, what make them make this irregular movement by vacating and leave the girls alone? The matron leave the school area before 6 o'clock. And the watchman on the gate lock the gate and leave the area before 6 o'clock. You see, one of the vice principal, he withdrew 8 girls from his village, his relative, and send them back home on that very day before the evening. You see, that make me, through my finding and my colleagues, is a setup. And during that night, before the incidents happen, you know, girls, they have friends. Some people within the town send their small children to call the girls back home. And when they reach home, they phone to their friend that our parents said that our school will not, are not safe. You better run away and leave the school. Okay? On hearing that, every girl pack his property and start moving out. And one of the vice principal rushed to the school and stopped them and snatch all the property from their hand and lock it in the gate man room. Nothing will happen. Just go back to your hostel and be together. Nothing will happen. You see? All these findings, it shows to me that is there really, there is something, there is a setup.
Yes.
After the incidents, we always had a meeting in that very school at the end of every 2 weeks to find a solution, or at least to make protests. In the town, they say that we should not make a protest in Chibok town. Government is going to do something about it. Let us assess patient. It's by force we force ourselves to make protests. Before we even make protests, our people, our sisters, our brothers in BBOG in Abuja, they have already voiced out before we, the political parents. So we joined them in protest. The outgoing government, when we got a chance to see him, I told him all about this happening. He said that he will set a committee to investigate. That committee, really, they came, leading by General Sambo to Chibok. When this committee were about to come, the elders of Chibok, they invite all the parents. As we are standing together with them, we have somebody call that Chibok is not safe. Don't come to Chibok. Boko Haram is more closer to Chibok. That's how that committee refused to come. Until after 2 months, before the committee come, they come on standing like this without even ask us as their parents or any go into deeply investigation. Within 20 minutes, they left with their helicopters. My brothers, we assume when we take it as their religions, we couldn't find it really as their religion, because in Chibok, I myself particularly, in my family, as a brothers, we are 19 in number in December. Us are Muslims, and 9 of us are Christians. We are living in peace in Chibok. There's almost 95% are Christians. Out of these 276 girls, only 36 are Muslims. We know. But it doesn't bother us much because we are living. By this observation, 57 of these girls escaped on the very day of adoption and the second day. It took almost 2 years, 6 months before one girl was found by hunters or vigilantes around Damboa areas. After that one, 21 girls was released on accusation. Will this present government, the president himself, invite us to the villa and seek for our opinions? What are we really want the government to do for us? We said we want our daughters, nothing else. We are all farmers. We are farmers. We farm to produce for our living. We don't want anything. We want our daughters. He promised us that really government will do something to see that the girls are back. After that, we realized 82 girls. And the 4 girls, 7 girls by the federal government. And that 57 girls who were escaping school. Then the Christian girls, they gained admission in just Christian academic school. And they are already passed out now. Recently, the state governor is seeking for their WIAS paper in order to find a place for them for schooling in either tertiary institution or any institution of higher learning. With the present government, really, we appreciate the effort, but why is it that Chibok has become exceptional on the day of adoption? Before the adoption happened, you know, Boko Haram has already taken over all the surrounding local government paper in Maiduguri or Biu area where there's enough security men. To my finding, why is it Chibok so exceptional to allow the students to write their work in Chibok? I have been asking this question. Why is it special to leave Chibok to write their work involved? You know, Lhasa is more closer to Sambisa than Chibok. Bama is in the route of Sambisa than Chibok. And then Kwandaga also is the Sambisa area. All these secondary schools, with all students, only one school in Chibok local government, that is the female school. The other local government, they have almost 3-4 secondary schools. Only one secondary school. Only school language. 36 are Muslims. When we say that it is a religion, Boko Haram killed everybody who is not in conscience with them. Mosques, we couldn't find something like that in the issue of religion. It makes us not to know what exactly the dimension of Boko Haram. If we say political, yes, we can call it in that way. But my finding doesn't go into deep to know that it is a political issue. Up to now, we are still looking for 112 girls in the hand of captors. Almost 4 years, 5 more today. Whether they are still alive, whether they are still, we can't tell as their parents. Let me tell you, the parents of these remaining 112 girls, if you look at them, if you see them, you really shed tears. Some of them has become affected. Really. I find it difficult as a leader to talk to them. Because they assume these 107 girls are only the remaining girls in the Sambisa. Their own are not alive. Now that I find myself together with you here, you are writers. You are educated enough. Government. Due to these incidents, we buried 33 parents. They refused to eat, refused to drink, and some of them die. Almost 33 of them die. Now that we are in political time, I don't know.
This government. Use your imagination, empathize with him, and transpose the feelings into some poems, plays, stories, whatever. Let's spread the message, okay? Unfortunately, we are time conscious. They keep pointing out time to me, and he has taken virtually all the time left. So I will just give one, chance. No, not question yet, all right? I will ask Mr. Abdulbasit, now that you have heard the practical, emotive side of it. How do you reconcile these experiences, right, with the academic findings, right, from the history of Islam, from the preachings, from the texts, from being preachers to the Islamic State? Do you think they are actually aiming to establish the Islamic State they think so much of, all right, or has been, said to be? Let me give you a context of situation. Before the Chibok incident, in fact, before 2006 or 7, after Goza, around Limankara, between Goza and Madagali, and they wreaked havoc there. My governor asked me to go to that area because it was claimed that the incident took place in the area that is under Adamawa and Borno, and then people, the local area. We went up the hills. We met the community leader, and in one of the prominent personalities in the Borno. So it happened in our own territory in Adamawa said, I must get back this diary. So we initiated a dialogue between government and government. Adamawa and Borno State Government. I'm telling you, this dialogue went on for a whole year. We never got to see that diary, right? That tells you something. So how do you contextualize this situation within the concept of establishing an Islamic State?
Let me Mala Yakubu Nkeki, I can perfectly understand what you're feeling, and trust me, working on this subject alone, by the time I completed the Boko Haram reader, I was so traumatized myself because I watched a lot of beheading videos, a lot of videos where people were beheaded. And in fact, I remember then, usually when I sleep and I wake up, I hold my head like someone is beheading me. So I was personally, even though I was far from the zone of the conflict, watching and constantly following every activity of Boko Haram, this emotional problem to me and myself, so I can understand what you're feeling. But I can only wish that some of these remaining girls, they will find their home back. That's the only thing I can say. Now, with respect to research, what you're saying, no, 3 months, Chibok occurred April 14, 2014. 3 months before that Chibok, Abubakar Shekau has been releasing video, and it was saying, we have gotten to the stage where we will start enslaving women and girls. So Chibok didn't actually occur. For me, it wasn't a... In one of his texts I translated, that text was Quranic exegesis of Surah Al-Imran. In that text, Muhammad Yusuf was speaking that when we have our territory, we will start embarking on slavery. That was as far back as 2008. So for Shekau, 3 months, actually February to be specific, I have had all these videos where I was analyzing, and Shekau was saying in that video that we will start embarking on the incest, number one. The second thing, at that time in 2014, when Boko Haram were actually at the peak, I would say, of their strength. Now, what they do is, and I have evidence of some of their leaflets, they tell them that we are coming here to actually attack you. And unfortunately, the government sometimes know, maybe, and I'm being careful here, actually, maybe it's possible that some of those people that escaped, some of those people that vacated their premises, they actually had access to some of the leaflets shared by Boko Haram itself. In my research, I actually came across some of those leaflets, and I actually saved them as primary sources for my research. Now, the third I would love to speak about is the Chibok episode itself. Boko Haram got to that point where they wanted to make their conflict a Muslim-Christian conflict. That was one of the goals of Abubakar Shekau. It showed him in Times 100. He's a megalomaniac in his, he wants to be seen in the media always. So for the Chibok, what happened? They said, well, this community was a Christian community. That is the evidence they gave. Now, they also wanted to enslave the people in Burma, and that was where they had their schism. Based on evidence, based on facts, based on sources that is coming. Abubakar Shekau actually said that I'm going to enslave the people of Burma. Burma No and Abu Musa Barnawi actually said that you cannot enslave the people of Burma because the people of Burma are Muslim. They are not what in Arabic they call Kufar Asliyan. That is what. So Abubakar Shekau actually said, I'm going to enslave the people of Burma because the people of Burma, they believe in democracy, they believe in the government, inner workings of the group. And one last thing I would love, for example, when the Chibok occurred, Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, they cited that they have a magazine called The Big and Rumiya. That's their magazine. And in their magazine, the Chibok, like, Abubakar Shekau has done something so wonderful that we need to emulate. In fact, because ISIS, they also enslaved the Yazidi girls. And in the enslavement of the Yazidi girls, they actually cited their inspiration as the event in Chibok. They said Abubakar Shekau enslaved Chibok girls, and that is where they got the inspiration for enslaving Yazidi girls. So the Chibok was not just even a local event. Other jihadi groups in other parts of the world also saw an inspiration in it. And to even add to that, there's a particular figure who is called Ansari Sharia. Abu Malik Shaib al-Hamid, and I documented this in the Boko Haram Reader as well, in Arabic sources, he actually said that part of the reason why ISIS accepted the Bay'ah, the Pledge of Allegiance from Abubakar Shekau, was because of the Chibok incident. That was one of the inspiration. So as much as I recognize knowledge about that text and what they say, I also see a lot of evidence as well. And unfortunately, those evidence were actually overlooked. They were neglected. Because I always say, if only people listen to Abubakar Shekau in February, no one will be surprised that Chibok kidnapping occurred, because it was consistently speaking about it. We're going to enslave women and girls. We're going to enslave women. It was speaking about it.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah, I think we are running out of time, so Bukky will say you round up briefly. You say you work with the NGO, right? You have visited these areas. One thing most people don't know here is that with all this crisis, with Maiduguri being the epicenter of that crisis, not even a balloon burst in the GRA. Nothing, not even loud cry of a wolf in that GRA. And GRA is the center where you have all the so-called big shots, right? The money bags. That area remained intact throughout the 9-year crisis. Nothing happened per month. To your house and pay upfront for 15 years and give you the money. What does that mean? Does it mean that they have already estimated that this crisis will bomb, bomb blast occurred in the guising, selling his own drugs over the microphone? We could hear the voice. So we were able to trace the location. His name Mala. Yes. Honest NGO, all right? What would you say is the role of the NGO in bringing to a solution, to this problem, fast resolution of this problem? How long are you going to remain in Maiduguri, right?
This is not a good time to be in the NGO. It's the term or the phrase commercialization of war. This is what I'm at 2009 in Borno State. I don't have the cause of the war. There are even more. Ogundamisi is here. Allow me to share this. I'm not going to go into details. He was invited to come and speak somewhere and train some people. And they gave him a list of over 250 NGOs that these were the people he's going to train, that because they are the ones working on counterinsurgency. When they were to do the training, only about 19 showed up. So the commercialization of war goes beyond the fact that we know that we have people in the top hierarchy of the military, the higher military echelon, who are increasing budget allocation simply because they want to get more money for this kind of war. And then you trickle it down to what is going on at the front line, where our men don't even have water to drink, and they don't have food, and they have to rely on the community, still debt, for them to get food to eat. And then you bring it down to the national level. Let me not go there. And then you bring it down to the local level and then the NGOs. The NGOs that are complicit here, they are not just the international they are making from what is going on in the Northeast will make you ashamed to call yourself a Nigerian. They collect this money. And then when you go there, see, guys, let's not talk about the problems. Let's talk about what you and I can do. What do we do when we get out of this place? What will your writing do? What will your voice do? What will your tweet do? What message, what article are you going to put out simply because of this information to force NGO person who makes sure that every we publish the report, including the financials, after 2 weeks of project completion on our website. And we don't just do that, we tweet about it and we put it out. And you can come and look at our books and we'll back it up. Google just last year, and they told us to use it for any ICT-related stuff. And we used it to set up 16 ICT centers in 16 communities across Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa. We went to Chibok, we went to Dapchi. We went to Chibok, we went to Dapchi. We intentionally went to Dapchi. We went to several communities, 16 of them, and we set up. And the NGOs, the international NGOs that are giving this money themselves, they are not helping. Because when they asked us to submit the report, the only report they asked us to submit was something on Excel. Nothing is being asked, show us the picture, let us know what is going on. It's just Excel and short narratives of how. So I had to send an email to them. How do you confirm that I went on the field to do this? But they invite me to UN General Assembly to come and speak. I've spoken there on the Lake Chad Basin crisis and everything. And then all they are asking you to come and do is come and talk about the problems like this, so that you push people who have trust funds and big money and countries to give them money. And the money, they will say they are coming here. What are you going to do now when you leave this place? What will your writing do? So I am challenging us that beyond the problem, please go back to NGOs to be accountable.
On this note, we will round up the session with an appeal to Lola, to Bukky, and other reputable, well-meaning NGOs to please reach out to us in the Department of English. Helpful workshop in creative writing so that we can come up with stories with points, with place, and I'm sure Lola will publish it for us against next year. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your fantastic research. I'm inspired, and I feel that we really need to do something. I was going to suggest that we think of a hashtag that we can at least include in our tweets. When we're tweeting and we put Kabafest 18, perhaps in relation to what Nkeki said about getting government to at least try to address the parents of these children. So perhaps if we can think, if you have ideas, please let me know. Maybe we can share it tomorrow and at least maybe try and trend it. Yeah? So the little that we can do while we're all here together, we actually try to achieve that using all our different platforms. Do you think that's something we can try? Okay. Thank you very much. Please, a wonderful warm round of applause to these lovely people. Stand up for your group photo, please.